So it is Friday, which means we have our Rush Hour Roundtable. And this week, we are bringing in our panel a bit earlier to discuss news all throughout the hour. So first, let's introduce you to our panel today. We do have Ashley Banfield, host of Banfield on NewsNation. Next, Meghan Basham, reporter for the Daily Wire. Mark Lamont Hill, professor of media studies and author of the new book, Seen and Unseen Technology, Social Media, and the Fight for Racial Justice. And last but not least, Capri Cafaro, cookbook author and host of Eat Your Heartland podcast and radio show. So we just heard Brooke's piece there. Our big question, is this the best way to protect schools? Ashley, let's start with you.
I kept thinking about all those video monitors, and wow, that's amazing. So are you then able to watch as a school shooter takes out about 15 or 20 children within a couple of minutes? Because seeing it can only stop it after a while. And these guns that are being used in these school shootings, the AR-15 in particular, they kill people very quickly. So I think it's kind of novel and great that you can maybe see somebody, but the damage gets done awful darn quick.
Can I jump in here, if I may? I'm sorry, because I actually, what you didn't mention in the intro is that I was a state senator and elected official for a decade. And during that time, I actually represented a community that had a school shooting. Four high school students in the Chardon City schools died at the hands of an active shooter in that community. It's a wonderful community, a small community, and not a community that would have been able to afford what Miami-Dade is doing. So while it is innovative, I think we have to recognize that, school districts and, local law enforcement and local governments are incredibly stretched. And so we have to think about this in a multidimensional approach. It's incredibly sad, in my opinion, that as we sit here and children are being buried in Texas, and we've seen this time and time again, that we have to have these conversations about how we best protect children and students in classrooms, and have to do it with, this like state-of-the-art technology. That's not going to be possible in all circumstances. But we have to ask ourselves why. Why are we in this position as a society right now, dealing with this in the way that we are in such frequency?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. I mean, this is actually one of the more reasonable proposals that I'd still very much disagree with. I've heard the, good guy with a gun beats bad guy with a gun theories. I've heard armed teachers. I've heard, in this case, surveil the entire district. And so everyone feels like they're being watched. To Ashley's point, as these powerful weapons do their damage very, very quickly before people have time to intervene often. I think the fundamental issue here, the answer here, is not to figure out more ways to increase the punishment state and the surveillance state and the police state, but instead to get at the fundamental issues here. How do we get guns out of society? How do we stop access? How do we create the kind of mental health resources so that young people in particular don't feel compelled to go and shoot up supermarkets and schools and all this other stuff? How do we meet people's needs? It seems to me that we're still committed to figuring out how to respond to craziness and crisis rather than figuring out how to truly prevent it from happening in the first place.
I mean, it seems like I actually feel really heartened by the discussion that we're having here, because it does seem very solutions oriented and not highly partisan oriented. And I think that's part of what these debates devolve into immediately after a shooting. And is this the best way, what they're doing in Miami-Dade? I'm not sure, but I think it's one of the possible, arrows in that we can work with here. Let's look at that. Let's look at surveillance. Let's look at having armed officers. Let's look at maybe why some red flag laws seem to have failed here. Certainly, we knew going in that this young man was deeply troubled. We have heard stories about him threatening to rape and kill girls in his classroom. We have heard stories of him torturing and killing animals and posting pictures of himself with dead animals. So there were a lot of warning signs here, and I think we can look at that all up and down the chain and go, why do these warning signs continually fall through the cracks? And I think that's a really good question. As to the question of, well, it's sad that we need to have these conversations. It is sad, and given that we all kind of disagree on potentially what may be causing it. Is it fatherlessness? Is it breakdown in community connection, community involvement? Is it a lack of faith of church in communities? We have to have those conversations. And this conversation that we're having now is really good.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, I think it's hard to necessarily or to try to draw through lines there, because I mean, there are plenty of children whose fathers are not involved in their lives, who are not going and shooting up schools, or who come from single parent families, or who maybe don't go to church every week.
Those signs. Right? That cat business was deep into the ugly web, and so was his rape threats. That's not something that's going to show up at a store, even if we pass these red flag laws, right? That kid wouldn't have shown up in any documentation necessarily anywhere. We would have had to have report society, right? That we would have had to now establish, now you have to report every single person for all the weird stuff they do as teenagers, so that we have documentation of it, so that the red flag law, kicks into effect before the AR-15 comes off the wall and into his hands. And I don't think that's a solution either.
Threatening to rape and kill, it goes a little beyond weird stuff we do as teenagers. I mean, look, we have research that shows if you torture and kill animals, that's something more than
I'm with you.
That is way beyond that.
Meghan, I'm with you 100%. The only problem is that he's saying that to other kids, and he's saying that to other people who are young. He wasn't saying that in an open schoolroom where a teacher who's a member of, of the public good could report him. So it's almost as though, unless, lucky us, we have another teenager who decides to tell on him, we're not going to have documentation for that 18-year-old boy. And so he would be able to go and buy that gun, even though he's done really creepy stuff online to his friends.
And Mark, in so many of these cases, we did have documentation. In Buffalo, we had documentation. In the Parkland case, we had documentation. When they start going in, you find out that there are records and nothing happened.
That's true. And Mark, I know you had wanted to say something.
I think all these things are most of these things are true. I think that, if we have red flags and smoking guns, we should use them as evidence to not give people weapons and to not allow people to have access to weapons. I think we all agree to that. No one is saying if a kid is torturing a cat that we should give him an AR-15. I think the question is, how easy is it to know that, and should that become the thing that we use as the linchpin to decide whether it's going to happen? Right. But I think lastly, while we're throwing things out here, I don't want us to say, well, there's lots of things and we should just weigh everything, because when we start weighing everything and saying, well, let's measure their faith and let's measure their fatherlessness, and let's measure, when we start throwing all those things out, it makes it seem as if those things are as predictive as things that are far more important. And that's the only thing I would be concerned about.
Absolutely. All right, panel, we do have to move on. We're going to bring everyone back, though, in just a few minutes. We're going to discuss another topic. I appreciate everybody weighing in on this one. Obviously, no easy answers here, as we see time and time again. All right, next. A 3-week manhunt for an escaped inmate is over after police shoot and kill convicted killer Gonzalo Lopez. We now know Lopez is suspected of killing a grandfather and 4 of his grandchildren just a mile from where Lopez escaped. NewsNation's senior national correspondent Brian Enton is live for us tonight in Texas. And Brian, finally an end to this 3-week manhunt, but so much tragedy along the way.
Yeah, talking to people who live in this community, there's obviously relief that it is finally over, but they are also just so heartbroken by the way all of this ended. 5 people in one family, all murdered by this escapee, Gonzalo Lopez. We've learned that it was a 66-year-old grandfather and then 4 grandchildren. One was 18 years old and the other 3 were just children. This all started 3 weeks ago. You remember Gonzalo Lopez, a Mexican mafia member, a convicted killer, managed to escape from an inmate transport bus. He took off in this area, Centerville, Texas, where we are, about halfway between Houston and Dallas, and he's been on the run for 3 weeks. No one really knew, but he was still in this area hiding out. Yesterday, that family from Houston came to their weekend home here. They arrived in the morning. Authorities say they were spotted alive in the morning, and they believe that Lopez murdered the family in the afternoon and then took off with their weapons and their truck, went on the run. He was eventually tracked down outside San Antonio, Texas. Investigators telling me they believe that he was trying to flee to Mexico. They got into a chase with him. There was a gunfight, and they ended up shooting and killing that inmate, and that is how all of this ended. But I will tell you, Nichole, people here are frustrated. They are angry. They want to know how he was able to escape in the first place. We are told that there is an ongoing internal affairs investigation.
Absolutely. All right. Brian Enton live with that update. Thank you. Well, joining us again is our round table panel. We're going to talk about this topic. So, Ashley, on your show Banfield last night, you spoke to someone who lives in that area where Lopez was last seen, and what she said gave you chills. Let's listen.
I would say, even including myself, began to believe that this man had left Leon County and that he was somewhere else in Texas, if not Mexico, by now. And they were not letting, there were no more briefings, not only for y'all, but no one, no law enforcement were really giving us any details as to any updates regarding the search whatsoever. We all began to let our guards down, all of us.
All right, so I know Capri has a really unique take on this one too, but Ashley, that was on your show last night. We heard from that resident there. Did law enforcement adequately update the community about Lopez's possible location?
I'm going to read you a text from one of those people in law enforcement that I had begged for 2 days straight to come on my show to talk about the danger in that community, to put the picture up to show that community what you should look for if you see him and report him, and to bar your doors, because this is a very unsafe place to be if that guy is anywhere nearby. He needs food, supplies, guns, and probably a vehicle. And if you're in his way, you mean nothing. He killed someone with a pickaxe. Here's the response I got on May 19th on a Thursday night. We continue to look for him. We have nothing new to release at this time. When we do, we'll contact the network. That was the answer I got repeatedly, asking those officers to come on the show, update, warn the community. And so you just heard that woman, Melanie, how angry she was that they didn't tell her that there was a danger, that they didn't even knock on her door if they weren't at least going to go to broadcasters and spread the word that this man is lethal. She was so mad, and she was also heartbroken. I don't know if you heard later, but she broke down into tears because she has a connection to that family. So I'm sorry. I've done enough manhunts in my day. That is absolutely inexcusable. That's a PIO telling me nothing to see here. I'm too tired, too busy, can't be on.
And Capri, again, you have a unique perspective here. Again, state senator in a district where there was an area where there was a school shooting, and that shooter apparently also escaped and was on the run for a few days.
Yep. Yeah, so, all this thinking about back to the last block, that same incident where that shooter killed 4 people a few years later, after he was in prison for a few years, he and a handful of other inmates escaped from prison. They were on the lam for a few days. They ultimately they did capture them. There were not any casualties, but there was a lot of panic in a number of communities across the state of Ohio, wondering where this guy was, knowing he was dangerous. And to Ashley's point, you don't want to be where these people are because they need what you have. They're looking for a vehicle to get away. They're looking for a change of clothes or to disguise themselves, whatever it may be. Ultimately, that shooter from Chardon got transferred into a supermax prison, which actually is not very far from where I am, where my district was. And so that made us very nervous because we thought to ourselves, okay, it's called supermax prison, but how easy he got out before, there's no guarantee that he could get out again. And in the case that we're talking about today in Texas, from some of the reporting that I saw, this guy who ultimately perished at the hands of law enforcement apparently has done this before. And somebody said, oh, he's like a Houdini or something of that nature. My God, I mean, the level of breakdown in this whole process from whoever in corrections that transported him all the way to the public information officers that were not sharing information, there's a lot of blame to go around, and a tragedy.
Yeah, a family left grieving. Yeah, Mark, what are your thoughts?
This is one of those situations where, first of all, I would imagine everybody on this panel, quite rarely maybe, will all agree, right? This was a breakdown. This was bad. People should have been alerted. I don't think there's anyone who would disagree with that. I think the question that we have to think about, though, is what does this say about the bigger question of police in society, of prison in society? You know, a lot of times people don't understand why communities lack trust in law enforcement, why they lack trust in community-based policing models. The problem is that often law enforcement is closing ranks around itself. And I'm not saying that the police officers in this case had a bad intention, or that they were intending to put people at harm's way, or that they were indifferent to people suffering, but they certainly didn't consider it, and they certainly didn't prioritize it in their decision-making processes. This is why communities need to be involved in these processes. This is why people ask for community-based oversight of police. This is why people ask for civilian and citizen review boards. It's not just because people don't trust police to not investigate themselves, although that's true. It's also because without community involved in the taking care and the protection of their own neighborhoods, you end up with situations like this where we're trusting law enforcement, and then we find out there's somebody who's a crazy killer running through the world and not telling us anything.
Yeah, you know, and Meghan, obviously hindsight is always 20/20, but you know, in this instance, it's deadly hindsight here. We're looking back at what should have been done differently.
Right. And, you know, I think this is something that we can all agree on, that there definitely seems to be a breakdown, and this closing ranks is problematic. It was problematic in Uvalde. But to speak to that larger issue that Marc Lamont brought up, I have to wonder, you know, do we need to start having a discussion about capital punishment in a situation like this? This man was known to have a willful, gross disregard of life. It was very well known that if he could get access to the public again, that people's lives would be in danger, not just in danger, but very likely that people would die, that people would be killed. And when you have shown that you have no regard for the lives of others, I can't help but think that we would have avoided this situation if he had been subject to the highest penalty under the law.
And Ashley, this, oh, go ahead, Mark.
A few things I would strongly disagree with that. One, I'm not sure that would have prevented this. When people break out of prison, I mean, most people who are on death row end up on death row for many years. They often don't end up executed. They often end up filing appeal after appeal after appeal. And guess what? You can break out of prison.
He couldn't have done this if he had not been still on this earth. He could not possibly have escaped and done what he did.
No, but
Can I just throw in the stats there? It takes more than 20 years usually to kill somebody, and I just went over his record, and he started his criminal odyssey in life at age 20. We wouldn't even be at the point where he had committed the kind of felony. Yeah, I mean, Marc Lamont Hill's right. It takes a long time, and by the way, though. But it's a good thing it takes a long time. Let me just say this, because this is one of the things that I have been so passionate about in my entire legal life, and that is that we screw up. And you don't get a mulligan with the death penalty. I could pull the lever myself if someone killed my family member without question. It's not a morality issue. It's a, oh my God, we are bad at this. We are really bad at justice. We mess up all the time, and you cannot mess up.
But when we
all right, panel. So we've now moved to the death penalty discussion. We'll never. Let's move on from this, because obviously I know this is a topic that we could continue on, and maybe at some point we will talk about that, because that's now, I think, moved over to the death penalty discussion. But for now, we will be coming back, and we are going to talk about the royals, Meghan and Harry. Seen together, finally, their first appearance since they left the royal family, gave up those duties. Is the family bond forever broken? We'll discuss. We do have breaking news just into NewsNation from the Pennsylvania Senate primary. Republican candidate David McCormick has conceded to front-runner Dr. Mehmet Oz, saying he cannot make up the deficit in an ongoing recount. McCormick trailed Oz by just about 1,000 votes after the initial count was too close to call. McCormick's campaign called for a recount, but that retabulation did little to ultimately change the results. Well, it is day 2 of Platinum Jubilee festivities across the pond, celebrating Queen Elizabeth's 70 years on the throne. But there were mixed reactions to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle today. They've largely been estranged for the past 2 years after they stepped down as senior members and later gave that revealing interview to Oprah. Sloan Glass joins us now. And Sloan, not a lot of words exchanged today, but some royal messages were definitely heard loud and clear.
That's how they are, Nicole. They can be very coy. And as people from all over the world gather to celebrate the Queen's 70th year on the throne, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry entered the lion's den of British society. Friday's service is the first time that Harry and Meghan have publicly been seen with senior members of the royal family, including Prince William and Kate Middleton, since Commonwealth Day in March 2020, a year before their explosive interview with Oprah. The brothers have since had a long-standing feud, and Harry and Meghan stepped back from their role as working royals. Harry has accused his father, the Queen's successor, Prince Charles, of cutting him off financially. And wife Meghan Markle claimed unnamed royal made a comment about their son Archie's skin tone before he was born. Today, the royal couples were never seen communicating. In fact, the brothers never stood close enough together to even be in the same photo. While the royals were never really allowed to speak out, they do tend to tell a lot with their clothes. Kate Middleton wore Queen Elizabeth's jewelry, while Meghan wore Dior to honor Princess Diana. And the crowd reportedly met Harry and Meghan with a mixture of applause and boos. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson was also booed while walking out into the Queen's Platinum Jubilee service, so it appears that this was a very vocal crowd. Nichole.
Absolutely. All right, Sloan, thank you for that. Let's bring back our roundtable. Also a very vocal crowd to discuss. And of course, there's always some type of royal family drama, but even more after Harry left. So our question is the royal family's bond broken? Obviously, you know, there was that March 2021 Oprah interview. Harry saying that his father was no longer taking his calls. Meghan said that there were some questions and concerns, maybe that their son's skin would be too dark. Meghan, let's start with you. What do you think? Is this family bond just forever broken?
You know, I don't know. It will be interesting to see. We know that the Queen is in her late 90s at this point, I believe. It feels at this point like she is the one who is holding the public perception together. Kate and Will to a lesser degree, but I don't know how this can be repaired once she is no longer with us, because at this point it feels like everyone is very deferential to her. Now, once she is no longer there, will that change? And I think at that point, you know, part of why you see them not coming out and perhaps saying more to disagree with some of the things that Harry and Meghan have said is because there is this understanding that Her Majesty would not like it. Now, when she's no longer with us, will that change? I don't know. I will say that I am glad to see them there. I'm glad to see that some attempts are being made. And it was interesting to go, the crowd seemed, at least none of this was politically driven. They did not care for Boris Johnson, and they didn't care for what you might say is the more left-leaning Harry and Meghan. So this seemed to not be politically driven at all, at least.
I got to say, you know, as someone who has studied American popular culture as a job for a few decades now, and as someone who's grown up in this country for many, many decades now, I am still just stunned at how much we care about this. It never ceases to amaze me.
I know it is interesting, Mark, because that's the whole point. That's why America exists, right?
I'm glad we're talking about it. To be clear, I'm not saying we shouldn't be talking about
right.
it. I'm just fascinated by how much we're fascinated by it, and how invested we are in it. And when I watch that interview with Oprah, and I'm watching the blogs, and I'm watching all this stuff, and I'm like, why do I care? And the answer is because in many ways, one, there's the palace intrigue, right? We're just fascinated by what it means to be in this context. It's also because of our relationship to England, right, as a nation. All of that's part of the backdrop. But to answer your question, now that I've got that out of the way, I think that it's very difficult to ever completely shatter a bond as a family. So I could totally imagine them coming back together. I could totally imagine them healing and getting beyond this. But based on what Harry and Meghan said, I'm not optimistic, because it seems to me that the concerns they have are deeper than a family fight. These are fundamental issues about who they are, about who their children are, about the romantic choices and love choices they've made. And I don't think I'm just not optimistic.
And I feel like there are family members that have had, you know, lesser issues that are not royals that don't talk for decades. Some even taking it to the grave. So, you know.
I think Mark cares. Because Mark is a friend of mine, and he knows that I'm Canadian, and that is my queen, and that her picture's on my money. Just be honest about it. It's because of me.
True.
But listen, I think the other thing is, and I don't think anybody will disagree here, we kind of like the pomp and circumstance. It's like this celebrity parade. I couldn't take my eyes off that fabulous yellow outfit on Kate Middleton. She's like a size 0 and super pretty. And I just can't stop looking at how lovely they all look. But I think the other thing is, why on earth would people see fit to boo Harry and Meghan when the person who might deserve the booing is like Prince Andrew, because that stuff was booable, right? The stuff that he, is alleged to have done and has been sued for and has been photographed doing. It's gross, and that's really booable. But Meghan and Harry showing up for the grandmother's 70th Jubilee on the throne, I just think that's kind of laudable because they came to the Thanksgiving dinner even though they're having a fight with their family.
There you go. Well, this is why Prince Andrew has not shown his face and will not show his face. Apparently, he's persona non grata. The Queen has made that very clear. She basically said, you're on your own, dude, because you are gross. And so he's not even, from my understanding, not even showing up and showing his face, because I would suspect not only may he get booed, but obviously a terrible look for the royals in the 21st century. The royal family is probably the most popular tourist attraction in the world. I mean, think about it. What makes the United Kingdom so interesting for so many people? Want to go see Buckingham Palace. They want to see the changing of the guard. People want to see what the royals are wearing, like Kate Middleton, and what jewelry they're wearing. And I think the other thing we need to remember is Diana, the people's princess, and the role that she had popularizing the royal family, humanizing them in some ways. And frankly, I think giving the gumption to Harry and subsequently Meghan to come forward and talk, because that's what Diana did. She was not going to sit there silently and let the firm do all the talking. She felt isolated. She felt that she didn't like the way her life was going in that environment. And she ultimately opened up to the press in a way that was unprecedented at the time within that royal family unit.
Showed all the flaws.
And maybe they can come back together. Because if you look at it, think about Camilla. At one point she was absolutely shunned within this family. Now she's sitting with them. She's with them, and she seems to, have been accepted into the fold.
Yeah, the public's behind her. I didn't think that was going to happen, but it did. The public absolutely loved Diana, and they're okay with Camilla. That was weird.
But I do think you kind of have to go, though, that they did love Diana, even though she spoke to the press. And they seem to be feeling something a little different from Harry and Meghan breaking protocol, because they're not reacting with that same outpouring of affection and sympathy that they did with Diana. So something different is happening here.
So the overall panel, do we think that this family eventually, maybe even decades later, will come back together?
I say yes, because those brothers grew up so tight, and I think eventually, hopefully, at least the brothers will come back together. I can't speak for Prince Charles and that dynamic with the sons, but hopeful for the brothers.
It's going to be a different dynamic. I believe what you're saying. It's going to be a different dynamic. My parents grew up with God Save the King. I grew up singing God Save the Queen, and we are about to go back to God Save the King, and it will be very, very different. The money will change, the mood will change, and Charles is not a spring chicken. So William is going to be on that throne before you know it, and that will be a very different monarchy.
All right, panel, thank you so much.
Different from now.
Yeah, certainly different from now.
Kate, yes, they follow the Queen's style.
Yes, we will see what happens. Panel, it was a great discussion today. I know we changed things up a little bit, brought you on for the entire hour. It was great. Love getting your input on all of that. We thank you for joining us, and we thank you for watching NewsNation Rush Hour tonight. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.